From the folks that brought you Max Payne, Alan Wake, and more recently, Quantum Break, comes a supernatural horror-esque third-person shooter adventure game called Control.
This is gonna be weirder than usual. This is my mess to clean up. My fight. No one else's. I am the director.
Now, Control is an incredible game. It really is. It's got a great story, an incredible world, combat that's challenging and fun and relentlessly destructive. It looks incredible and can be cinematic as fuck. And yet, as an experience, I thought this game was fine. It was a great time. I had a lot of fun with it, but I never really found myself thinking about it outside of actually playing it. That is, until I finished the game.
That's it?
Right now, it's sitting in a weird place between recommending it and understanding that once people start playing it, they might not have a reason to go back to it. And it was honestly finding out exactly why that was the most difficult part of writing this. So let's start with the basics.
Should I lie?
Jesse Faden. I'm just visiting.
I should have lied.
You play as Jessie, a woman who's looking for her brother and finds her way into the Federal Bureau of Control, a secretive government organization that studies and contains supernatural phenomena in a building that shifts and changes its interior, only known as the Oldest House. Now, that's really all I can say about the story without spoiling it, because if you're not hooked from that, then you probably already won't be interested in this game, which is honestly my biggest critique here. I feel like Control is a perfect example of a game that has a world that is infinitely more interesting than any one particular thing that's going on in it. It's not that I didn't find the main story interesting, it's just that I craved so much more of what was going on around it and how it was told, to the point that I'd say the game gets better after you've actually finished it. While exploring the Oldest House, you'll come across documents, video, and audio logs that flesh out this incredibly weird world. But strangely enough, they rarely give you answers, and instead, they mostly pose more questions. Look, I know this sounds annoying, but to me, this is where it excels in being more interesting than the main story. Where one seems to be only interested in answering questions that you as a player didn't even know you had, the other drip feeds you with incomplete exposition that only keeps you coming back for more, keeps you wondering and searching. And I think this is where Control suffers the most. The part where most players are going to go through is really the most boring part of this world. It's like Remedy made this incredible universe and only put the most effort into the least interesting bit. All the cinematics, all the editing, all the voice acting and performances, they can only be seen as exposition for things that you have no reason to care about just yet. I mean, you do meet a lot of characters along the way, but only a few of them are actually memorable. And even then, some of the most interesting aren't even that integral to the main plot. And even though the game looks fantastic, I found some of these models quite stiff. Every moment of interaction is the same shot, reverse shot deal, and the content of the conversation is about 90% exposition. But as time moves on and you continue to play, things like the myriad of documents and video logs especially really activate a sense of curiosity. After more and more digging, you begin to understand that these little pieces of this world were not designed for this character to come across. They're just offcuts, which is why they're not deemed essential to this story. I mean, if they were, they'd actually be included in it.
You're listening to America Overnight, mystifying the airwaves for more than 29 years.
It's for this reason that I was more excited taking up side missions rather than the main campaign. Each one does such a service to this world that it makes the player actually care about it. Like, for example, there's a section in the game where you meet up with this janitor called Ati, who's got to be the most charismatic and interesting character in the game. Which, I mean, let's face it, really isn't that hard to do when your competition is planks of wood that spout exposition. And all you do for him is menial janitorial tasks, like cleaning up mold and talking to plants.
Your chlorophyll really brings out the green in your leaves. They say I'm the director, but what does that mean? I have no experience in leadership roles. I have no on-the-job training.
Each of them had me more engrossed in this world than the main story ever did. And some of them even made me care about Jesse's character more.
You have a family? I have a brother. I miss him a lot.
And these are reasons why I'm still playing Control even after finishing it. Look, if it sounds like I'm throwing too much shit at the story, I apologize. It's honestly fine, just as it is. It just baffles me that it dwarfs in comparison to the world building that's constantly going on around it. And it's all just side content, optional content. That's why I really think people should still play this game. Well, it's one of the reasons. Besides the fantastic world building, the game's combat has to be its second biggest achievement. What up, boys? Let's tango! Encounters in Control are visceral, destructive, incredibly chaotic, and just so damn fun. Your primary weapon is referred to only as the service weapon, a shape-shifting gun that can basically transform into different weapons like a handgun, a shotgun, a sniper, or an SMG that all share the same ammo pool that constantly regenerates. Along with this, you're given a number of psionic abilities, the simplest of which is a throw that allows you to pull objects in from the environment and violently launch them at enemies, also using a separate energy meter that regenerates quickly over time. Now, this was something I really grew to like because it gives such a rhythm to combat where you're never scattered looking for ammo or energy, and instead, you're forced to balance using your weapon and your abilities, learning to switch between one or the other or use them in tandem, which can lead to some incredibly devastating enemy encounters. A lot of the time, you'll be pitted against waves of various enemies, and it's up to you on how you want to dispatch them. But if there's one constant throughout all of these encounters, it's movement. I mean, the only way to replenish your health in the middle of combat is to kill enemies. So there's a risk-reward system that's at play that encourages aggressive, dynamic combat. Also, please indulge me in showing you all just how fun it is to absolutely smash everything in this world. Now, as a first for Remedy, the game also includes some light RPG elements in the form of a steady feed of abilities to play around with in combat. And each of them elevate the experience, but never to a point where you feel too overpowered. You're given a shield, a simple melee attack, and the ability to convert an enemy with low health to make them fight on your side for a small time. Along with a few others that I don't want to spoil. You can also find personal and weapon mods, which basically act as buffs that can boost things like attack or weapon damage or accuracy, and lessen the energy cost for certain abilities. Now, I thought this was okay, but I never got why there's a limit to how many of them you can have in your inventory, and it just made the whole process of managing them a little tedious. Like, whenever I'd try to pick up a new mod, I'd have to go into my inventory and discard the ones that I don't need anymore or the ones that were too weak, and it would halt the flow of the game every now and then. It's a small gripe, but it does get bothersome over time since there's no way to increase the limit of mods you can carry, and the menus aren't exactly the best to navigate. However, it is possible to upgrade these weapons using the resources that you find scattered throughout the oldest house. These upgrades increase weapon damage and also unlock a new mod slot for you to buff your service weapon form. And you can also craft new forms as well as random mods. Astral constructs. So it's almost like a rifle, an assault rifle. That'd be pretty cool. but I never really found myself going back to these. It's weird how little emphasis the game puts on these weapon upgrades. Outside of a little tutorial explaining this menu to the player, you're never really encouraged to go back here. There aren't any weapons that affect certain enemies or allow you to get through certain places, and in a game that requires a little more backtracking through areas than usual, it's a Metroidvania aspect that I would have really enjoyed. In fact, I got through my first playthrough of the main story with only 3 of the weapon forms unlocked. Sure, if you know how to use these forms, some enemies can go down easier. I'm looking at you, you flying chair fuckers. But once you get familiar with the game's combat, there are a lot of fun ways to dispatch foes. Oh, and speaking of Metroidvania, there's one ability that does allow for unlocking new areas though. Toward the latter half of the game, you unlock the ability to levitate. That's really fun to use in combat and really just acts as an extension of your jump ability. Like, it doesn't go all crazy and let you fly around the place, but it also serves as a way for you to get to unreachable areas in locations that you've already explored. Which was something that I really appreciated, and I wish the game did a little bit more of that. I heard a lot of people describe this as a Metroidvania, but it didn't really live up to that for me personally. In spite of that though, I thought just exploring this world was incredible. You can see just how much detail is placed into every room, from the way that things like coffee mugs sit on tables to how papers and boxes and other office things are scattered across benches. Having this entire game place in what is essentially this office environment is so strange, but I think it's Control's sheer commitment to this aesthetic that turns it into more than just that. It seeps into its narrative, to its gameplay, to its dialogue, and even its characters. Everyone you meet has a job to do in the oldest house, and usually when you first meet them, you help them out with some twisted extrapolation of a menial task. Benign fetch quests incorporate paranatural twists, rescue missions see you face off against extra-dimensional monsters, and cleaning up mold has you fight a giant, angry plant. You get the picture. Whatever the game has you do next, you can bet that it'll be strange and otherworldly, with a healthy sprinkle of mundane for good measure. And you'll be doing these in incredibly rendered environments and particle effects. Honestly, I cannot stress just how damn beautiful this game is. Now, there are moments where the world falters a little bit, though that does seem more of a performance issue than anything else. I played this on the PS4, and even on that system, the game did struggle when coming in and out of menus, and every time when there were too many enemies on screen, and all the destruction and particle effects went crazy. But what I'm mostly referring to and how good the game looks is how the world is affected by you, the player. The detail in every locale, the way enemies disintegrate when you defeat them, the chaos that you can cause in fights, the incorporation of actual video shot as training material or used with actors in cutscenes. This game is absolutely dripping with style, and I was here for every bit of it. But I think this is also where the game's commitment to its aesthetic can be a double-edged sword, in one particular way. This map is fucking terrible. I really do mean that. Like, if there was one thing I actually hated from this game, it would be this terrible fucking map. It's essentially just a loose blueprint of whichever area you're in, and it doesn't even have all the rooms marked in it. And all of these rooms can look and feel very similar, so it's incredibly easy to get lost in the game. So this map makes really little sense practically, and made missions where I was looking for something super specific a lot more difficult. It's because of these moments that made me wish for more varied environments, and thankfully that's something the game does deliver from time to time, and it really allows for the aesthetic to breathe and be more dynamic. I just wish that they came a little more frequently. You know, even as I do research into this game to write this piece, the more I learn about Control, the more interested in it I become. But only after the fact. I purposely stayed away from anything about this game until I played it 3 years after its release, to not spoil it for myself. And it's something I urge you guys to do as well. It's also why I'm being a little vague here. Even though it places the game at a really weird place, I can only hope you all understand the predicament that I am in. I can't assure you that you'll like Control if you end up playing it, but I can recommend that you play it to find out if you do. Though if there's anything in this piece that's gotten you the least bit intrigued, then you'll probably already like it. I also feel like I need to reiterate that I really enjoyed my time with this game. There's so many separate aspects of it that make it extremely fascinating, but to me, the most interesting thing about it is how Control chooses to tell its stories, and not necessarily the stories themselves. This is true for the side missions, the little bit of exposition you find outside the main campaign, as well as the main story itself. Now, if I had to draw a graph for how much fun I had in the 11-ish hours it took for me to finish this game, it would look like this. Low in the beginning, but with some fun combat and exploration bits, a little meh in the middle, and then a lot of fun once I got to the end. But I hope this review makes it clearer whether or not this is a game that you would actually like and play. As soon as I heard about it, I was extremely hyped and excited to play it. Was I disappointed? No, I wasn't. Not with the entire game as a whole. It's just that a few things throughout it let down parts of the experience. And I'm currently working through the Awe and Foundation DLC, and right now, it's pretty good. So I'll maybe do a video for those when I finish them. Thanks for watching, everybody. I know this game came out like ages ago, but I really wanted to play through it and give my thoughts on it, and I'm sort of doing that with my entire collection of video games just to improve how I write and review games. Hopefully you'll catch the next one, and thanks for watching this one. Ciao. Whoa. Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh my god.